So aim behavior, movement, game sense, and awareness. I want to go over how important those things are individually, but I also want to stress that not a single one of them is more important than the other. A lot of people are going to sit there and say that, you know, if you have terrible aim, then you're just going to be a terrible FPS player. Aim behavior, in my opinion, is one of those things that's kind of like a redundant thing to talk about, because of course in a shooter, especially a first-person shooter, your aim is going to directly affect how well you're doing in the game. Like that, it's redundant to go over in a basic aspect. But what's not redundant to go over when it comes to aim behavior is how each game individually has their game mechanics and their recoil mechanics and how guns feel, how each thing reloads. One of the reasons that I personally don't like third-person shooter games in most cases is because even when quote-unquote aiming down sight, you still have a hip fire reticle that throws the bullets in roughly that area instead of it being a pinpoint accurate system. The other thing that Call of Duty does is it's a mixed behavior system, and what I mean by that is there is predictive recoil, obviously, but when you are not aiming down your sight, that is when randomized recoil happens. And what I mean by that isn't necessarily the behavior of the gun recoiling up or to the side, it's more so about where the bullets go within the hipfire reticle itself. That is not consistent like the aim down sight behavior of the recoil. That is a randomized recoil where the bullets kind of go wherever it wants to within that hipfire reticle. Aim behavior to me is kind of redundant to talk about when you're just talking about, hey, you should just learn to aim better. When you consider in a casual sense, a lot of people are going to sit there and as a casual player say, I don't have the time investment in order to be able to get better at games like this. Like, I only play a couple hours a day or a couple hours every other day, if that. One of the things with the Citrus Academy that I want to put into place is to show you that that is not the case. You can improve even if you only have a couple hours a day to play, simply by doing a couple of exercises for aim behavior, even just at the pregame lobby. Even if the pregame lobby is only 30 seconds that you're actually able to sit there and do anything, you are able to work on your aim behavior in little increments that will go a long way over time. Aside from aim behavior, you also have movement, game sense, and awareness. So the next thing I want to talk about is game sense itself. Game sense takes your aim behavior, your movement, and your awareness and puts everything together to create something for you to go off of as far as like a feeling or a instinctual thing in order to actually act on. So for example, I actually have a little clip here that I wanted to kind of break down a little bit so you can see exactly what it is that I'm talking about when I talk about game sense. It's a mix of your aim behavior, your movement, and everything else like that. We landed right about here on the map. All right, so once we landed, we had quite a few people here that were taken care of by Chief and Darkless, and then I started moving up here because I saw that some of the extra people that landed here ran away to this area. All right, so we moved up here, grabbed a couple of things, right? So after pushing into this building, okay, I see that this isn't looted. So since none of this building is looted and this vehicle is right here, kind of just little deductive reasoning, most likely they all went to the couple of buildings that are right next to the buy station. They could be here, but from everything that I know at the time, once we had moved up here, all I saw was that this vehicle went from this buy station to this buy station.
I'm alright.
I got one kill. But it was very
okay, from here, we see that the car goes red, which means that somebody got into that vehicle, and obviously where I thought they were is exactly where it ended up being that they were. So that's the first thing that pops into my head. So there's one person right there for sure.
I missed on my ass. In the vehicle.
From here, We see that he gets out, most likely because of the shots that Chief and Darkless were taking on him in order to try to kill him since he really wasn't moving. Since there wasn't anything that I saw immediately that said that they downed him, because I didn't hear any callouts made. I think he might have downed someone, because you can see, well, you can't really see it that much right there, but you can kind of see right here that something had popped up saying that Darkless did something.
Hey, down my left, down my left. Cracked me, inside, downstairs.
Okay. So I get my first down and I get my first kill right there. Alright. So if we go from here to that first kill, one of the things to know is that on the minimap, whenever a red dot on Call of Duty, for example, pops up, if it's a solid red dot with nothing above or below it, that means that they are in the same elevation as you. They're on the same level as you as far as height is concerned. This red dot has an arrow on the bottom of it, which means that he is at a lower elevation to me. So that tells me that since I'm on the second floor of this building, then he is on the same level as the first floor. Shots are being fired from here. I notice that and start pushing away because I see that Darkless. You see the little double take that I just did right there, right? So the reason I did that double take is because starts pushing, fires. I see on the map that he turns to start taking shots at this dot here. So even though I turned to the doorway with the idea of pushing out of the doorway to try to take that guy off guard, I see that Darkless, instead of continuing to run forward, actually turns around and contests it, which tells me that unless Darkless goes down, that guy is most likely going to try to find cover, which then makes me turn and push to the front. And that's the first kill. Now, while this is happening, it's a little bit hard to see, but while this is happening, you can see that I turned my attention in the middle of firing at this guy. I turned my attention, my gaze looks to the left. I hear shots firing, and I see that this red dot right here has an arrow pointing above me. Now, when I first went up there, there wasn't any clue as to someone being there to begin with, because there was no loot taken, the doors weren't open, and when I scanned the room, I didn't see anybody. So that tells me that if there is someone still up there, that means that they are on top of the roof.
Guy up top. Guy behind me.
Playing 100 cards. Playing 100 cards towards brawl, and
which from there leads me to the second kill. Now, I took my time to reload and make sure that I was ready for that.
Very scary kill.
Right.
Guy up top. Guy behind me.
But I already knew that he was most likely going to be right here, which leads me to the second kill. So from here, while I was doing that and while I was dealing with that entire situation, you can see that Darkless ended up getting taken out by the third guy. This tells me that since that firefight just ended, I just need to try to push and see if I can try to finish this fight, because I can see that Chief is inside of my building with me, either trying to plate up or trying to get away from whatever situation that is currently happening. So this guy has the opportunity to get away since there's a vehicle there.
There are literally guys everywhere. Got him.
So that was actually relatively a really quick 3 kills. Grab a QBZ from the floor, grab a little bit of ammo. I see that nobody else is here. No door is open right there. Ammo, ammo, and then everything starts popping off.
Hey, down my left, down my left. Cracked me, inside, downstairs. Guy up top. Guy behind me.
playing 100 cards. Playing 100 cards towards brawl, and I turned one.
Last guy's on me, bro. There are literally guys everywhere. Last guy.
So that was 3 kills in 27 seconds. And part of that has to do with Darkless giving good callouts and saying where people are. But that also is just because of sitting there and taking the time whenever I had it to go through all the information that I knew, use my movement to get to exactly where I needed to be, and use my game sense to go, okay, since this happened, that means that this or this could happen. What's the most likely situation? Whenever you are playing a first-person shooter and you get into a situation where you run up to someone, get a couple of shots in, and then they run into a doorway and run behind cover, and let's say that doorway leads to a hallway, you are presented with a multiple choice question. You can either push in and be aggressive and try to take out the guy. You can either hold your ground and hope that he re-peeks or pushes out or something or anything like that. You can use that opportunity to run back the other direction and get away and disengage from the fight, or you can try to see if you can outmaneuver the person and catch him off guard as he's running away. So there's outmaneuvering, there's aggressive, there's a passive way, and then there's disengaging. The issue is that when you are faced with that multiple choice question, the other person is faced with that same question. So now it becomes a matching question instead of a multiple choice question, because if you choose an option and the other person chooses a better option that counters it, then that could lead you to losing, even if you got shots on the person first. Whenever you get into an engagement, you have to try to figure out the best way for you to come up with whatever answer you're going to give that multiple choice question as quickly as possible, and with whatever is the most efficient way for you to do so. If you choose to be aggressive and that person chooses to be aggressive, most likely you're going to win that situation because you've already got shots on that person. Obviously, if you end up missing shots, then, you know, that's a different story. That goes back to just training aim behavior and movement and some of those other things. But when we're talking about people of the same skill level being shown this question, if you got shots on the person first and you choose to be aggressive and they choose to be aggressive, you should win. If they choose to be aggressive and you choose to be passive, you should win. Now, if they choose to be passive and they fall back and you choose to be aggressive, then that is where more advanced game sense comes into play. Like, for example, going through, okay, if I'm gonna push this, should I throw a stun? Should I throw a flash? Should I push through the other door to the left of me that leads to the same hallway? Should I do X, Y, and Z? It presents you with another question, another multiple choice question. Whenever you see people like streamers or professional players or anything else like that, whenever you watch them, I bet you there's a point in time where you see them sit there and say, I can't believe that guy just did that, or I'm surprised that he would push that, or something like that. It's because when they were presented with this multiple choice question, they chose an answer and they predicted what the other person's answer was going to be, and it wasn't it, and it threw them off, and it made them either lose or win, regardless of whatever it was. You are looking at a question being presented to you, and you are given multiple choices, but you also need to figure out what the other person is going to do at the same time. Instead of figuring out what you're going to do, figure out what the other person is doing first. Do not answer your question until you have answered their question first. If you get a couple of shots on them and they run behind cover, are they going to run? Are they going to stay? Or are they going to try to pull some shenanigans and fucking wet blanket you across the face with a stun grenade? Game sense is something that takes a little bit to develop because it is also based off of the game itself that you're playing. So don't beat yourself up if it's taking a while to figure it out. Don't beat yourself up if you end up making a bad push or something like that, or you have confidence that you can take the guy out that you're chasing down and then he turns on you or does something you weren't expecting and then kills you. Do not be upset about that. It's going to happen. You are going to learn, and then you'll have that in the back of your head. You'll have that knowledge in the back of your head to be able to make a better decision the next time a similar situation happens. If we are going to talk about movement, I have an example here. The frame rates are a little bit When you start to master a movement system in a game, you will become 10 times more proficient. And this is where the whole basis of if your aim is bad, you're going to be bad at the game goes out the window. Because if you can get movement down, if you can outmaneuver someone else, then you'll be able to beat them, even if they have better aim than you. Guaranteed. This also comes down to awareness as well. Awareness in the same breath is the same thing as map knowledge, and map knowledge itself is something that takes a little bit of time to learn. So knowing your surroundings, knowing the types of things that you can get away with, and then applying movement to your map knowledge to give you an upper hand in a fight. This building right here is one of the most common buildings that you're going to see in Warzone, period. It is a 2-story building with a bathroom on the right side, one room in here. You have another room on this side here that has a little railing next to the doorway, and then a staircase that leads to 2 rooms and a small little walkway through at the top of the staircase. This is one of the most common buildings in the entire map of Warzone. And if you learn how to get around and maneuver in this building, then you will succeed in a lot of crazy, ridiculous stuff that is going to blow people's minds, especially at average skill levels.
I am cool.
I am one with the force.
Oh god!
Where?
Left. Like right in front of him. Like they're like right on the same spot. I'm one with the force, I'm one with the force is with me. Behind you, he's outside. Oh, okay. Oh, played that guy. Coming, he's picking up.
This is actually a very simple maneuver that you can do in this building, and it's actually a very simple way of just kind of getting around it. It starts off with me missing an unfortunate easy snipe. The guy's kind of sitting there. I end up aiming where he is and not where he's going to be because he ends up moving at the last second. I should have shot there. I was just a millisecond off, and I ended up missing that. Here, I open the door, see that this guy is here. As soon as I see that this guy is here, I try to get a couple of shots on. That's something that I do every single time that I see someone. When I open a door or look through a hallway or anything else like that, I always try to get at least a couple of shots onto the person, because that'll kind of put some pressure on them. Even if it's not something that pulls them away from chasing you, it'll still put pressure on them knowing that they got hit. So I don't get any shots on him, but he gets one on me. I pop dead silence, and as soon as I come up this, I see that the dude popped through this window. Instead of sitting there and fighting it, I just decide to leave. Most people are going to sit there and realize that you have 2 people inside of that building and 1 person trying to run away. That's what they're going to think. So from here, as I am exiting the window, I turn around and face back towards the building because I assume that they think I'm gonna like run behind the garage right here and go to the right. So I end up pushing back in, see that there's no movement to the left. Darkless is giving me callouts saying that they're over here now on the left-hand side. So that tells me that maybe I can pick one off real quick and go through the window, see if I can get shots on. I don't get enough shots on, but their teammate is in the middle of running around in a circle trying to find me, right? So Darkless's call out saying that he is in the back on the left-hand side tells me exactly what I needed to know, that when I exited the window and went back inside, the guy thought that I continued around that garage. From there, the guy is now pushing back in because they don't see me. They have no idea where it is. And the last location that they had of me, because I have dead silence on, they can't hear my footsteps, is that I shot one through the doorway. The guy didn't see where I was. You can see that when I landed, he had no idea where I was when I landed and shot at him. Right? He's already turning. No clue. Runs inside. No idea where I am.
Oh, okay.
So they end up, after I come in, they end up looking out towards the very edge of the building because they're assuming that I am either at the fence or anywhere else like that. So I get an easy down right here, start trying to get some shots on the other guy. I run out of ammo, and I start trying to reload. This guy pops up, and he ends up seeing me. That's kind of the thing that ended up being my downfall, because from here I had already planned on jumping back up and trying to get an angle on one of them. So that's what I did. Started getting shots on me. I got some shots on him, but I lost control of the MP5. Using a gray MP5, especially the Cold War one, I'm not used to, and I'm not used to the recoil control of it, so end up missing shots, and as I'm trying to correct, I end up falling off the cliff. After I end up falling off of the cliff, the multiple choice question that I got presented to me had an easy answer. Instead of multiple choice, it was true or false, disengage or not disengage, and disengage is what you do every time. When you look at when you look at FPS basics and you're trying to figure out exactly what it is that you're trying to improve on, don't look at it as a simple case of, well, I just need to get better with shooting the gun. I just need to get better with aiming. Well, I just need to learn to slide cancel. Well, I just need to like pay attention to my map more. It's not as simple as that. But on the same token, it actually kind of gets simpler, because as you start progressing through this and as you continue to work on individual things, everything else is just going to cohesively come together, and it's going to end up making it so you become a better player regardless of what game it is. Whenever you are trying to improve at a video game, and you're trying to improve at a shooter especially, it's not just about having better aim. It's about knowing the map, learning the little things here and there within the map itself. Like I said, that building is one of the most common buildings in Warzone. If you learn how to maneuver around that building, then you'll win a lot more gunfights than you ever expected to. One of the other things that I do mentally whenever I get into an engagement is I section off areas in the game itself and treat them like multiplayer maps. So for example, up here where the police station is leading down to that building that I was just talking about, whenever an engagement starts in that area, I only focus on this area. Unless something else is leading me to a different location, I only focus on this area as if it's a multiplayer map. Because when you are not having to worry about the building down below, across the street, the hill up above you, and everywhere around you, and you are only focusing on the 4 buildings that are right next to you and one of them that you're in, it makes it 10 times easier to figure out what you're going to do and respond to certain situations. The next Citrus Academy session that we're going to have, I'm still figuring out exactly what we're going to be talking about. It might just end up being a little bit of an introduction into Battlefield. I might just like go over some of the beta gameplay that we had and make up a video on it so that I can present it here and showcase some of the things so that you can be prepared for when it launches and whatnot. If there's one thing that you take away from this, that, in my personal opinion, would be awareness, game sense, and movement. Those 3 things work in tandem with each other way more often than you would think it would be. So when you are going into your games the next couple of weeks, I just kind of want you to think about the actions that you're taking. Like, if a firefight starts between you and your team, I want you to be thinking about what it is that you're doing. Are you sitting there and choosing passive more often than not? Are you even considering an aggressive approach? Are you considering disengaging instead of being aggressive, or vice versa? Are you considering being aggressive instead of disengaging? Sit there and in your firefights, think about what you're doing in those firefights, which option of that multiple choice question you're choosing more often than not, and just kind of try to figure out, you know, if you finish a fight and you didn't really do much in that firefight, but it seemed like a lot happened, what could you have done instead? Always be part of the fight. Like, just try something. If you lose, if you die, don't worry about it. If you look at the losses that you have, or the failed movements or the failed tactics that you try, and you look at it as a learning experience, then it's going to be nothing but progress for you. If you drop into Warzone and you don't kill anyone and you die, don't get aggravated about it. try to figure out what you could have done differently to make it so that instead, the next time you drop, maybe you get 2 kills, 3 kills. Maybe within the first ring closing, you're at a 9 kill streak. Who knows? I know it's easy, but do everything you can not to blame things on something that you can't control, like hacking, cheating, other stuff like that. Be more critical on yourself. Don't push it off onto something else. Do not sit there and say that someone is hacking. Do not sit there and say, oh, that's bullshit. There's no way that guy did that. Look more inward on the actions that you took, because then you're progressing and you're learning. If it was a hacker, it is what it is. It happens. The new anti-cheat system is coming into Warzone, so Call of Duty players don't really need to worry about that as much once that comes into play. There's always going to be hackers. There's always going to be cheaters somewhere in video games. Don't let it ruin your experience while you're playing the game. As far as the Citrus Academy session, that's all I have for you today. Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out, showing up for class. I appreciate all the support that you have been showing. I hope this has been helpful to you guys. I hope you guys are learning something. Make sure that if you have any questions or if you have any comments, if I said something wrong or you're curious about something I said, make sure that you leave a comment. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Thank you guys so much for coming, and I will see you guys on the next session.